Welcome, one and all, to a Blue Jacket special. Um, you've uh, probably seen one of the things that we've done before. Um, this one is slightly different, although we say that every time. Uh, this handsome gentleman here is um, the kind of the star of the show, and I'm kind of doing the kind of the other hand of this here. Because we're going to be talking about the hard skills that we got out of running our Advent of Code in 2023, and a lot of this centers about the work that this gentleman did and what he got up to. So we're going to talk kind of generally about what went on. We're also going to look in detail about some of the things that went on behind the scenes in order to kind of make that happen. So I think if you can read comments, Henry, I mean we're happy to kind of tackle things as we go. I think. Um, so any thoughts, any shout outs? We are more than happy to accommodate. So reflections here. Um, so in 2023, we organized an Advent of Code leaderboard for mainframers, and some of you may have seen this the presentation where we basically kind of rallied the kind of the mainframe groups, and we got support from our friends at IBM to help us stand up a a resource to help people follow through on Advent of Code using mainframe languages. How is that? How is that for you, Henry? Have you recovered from those Christmas exertions?
Yes, I mean we're deep into April now, so the high is gone. But as I was mesmerizing last night in preparation of this, it's already April. It won't be too long until the madness starts again. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I went from I'm in the on the uphill now, I must say, on the
yeah,
excitement. Yeah,
yeah. Fully,
definitely.
fully recovered. Um, so we'll talk about the concept that we had here with hard skills, and you'll see the title is a reference to Alice Through the Looking Glass. So it gives us a chance to kind of leaf back through what happened and see some of the interesting kind of thoughts that we had. Now, there's more than one story to tell here, and I think some of the things that we saw, looking at the challenges and looking at what people did, maybe deserve a different lens, so like a longer conversation. But I think here we can at least think about quite what happened and what were the interesting things that we saw. And skills and learning stream is a kind of an interesting forum in that it kind of like spans the needs of um, people who are into education and training, academics, if there are any. It spans the needs of people who are learners on the platform, and often that can be early career people, and that could be students. But it's really kind of people who are looking to kind of move onto the platform or move up in their role. It also spans um, hiring managers, and I think that's maybe an audience that we really like to kind of groom if we can. So to give people ideas about how to find and develop the best talent. So we hope we can proceed in the spirit of that, and we can use some of the insights from our Advent of Code adventures to kind of percolate that idea. Right then. Any thoughts on this here, Henry? Our story so far. Have I kind of captured what went on?
Yeah, look, it's always nice when we co-present. Yeah, I think maybe it's nice mentioning that it wasn't just Advent of Code 2023, but this madness has been running for how long we do this for now? 3 to 4 years,
Three, four
maybe.
years, 3 4 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we had a
So it's
soft 3 4 years
yeah.
ago, and like now for the last 3 years, it's been like a pretty full on event.
So maybe I don't know if show of hands shows in the chat because I cannot see everybody's like what's the word picture on the video screen, even though nobody's airing the video. But is there any pressing questions regarding Advent of Code before we continue, so that you're not lost halfway through? Is there anything we need to address?
I
Um,
mean, just even, and you can use the raise a hand function. Has everybody heard of Advent of Code? Do we know what we're talking about? Is there a sufficient number of people that we've already disturbed with this?
I, I see no hands and no chat, so I'd say we would be good, maybe. But
Yeah,
maybe just as a quick recap, the little copy from our slides from last November, I think,
yeah,
are
yeah, yeah. And
hmm,
yeah.
oh
So
yeah.
I've got here the examples of kind of what went on. But yeah, if you want to say about the
Yeah, just on that left side thing, right? It's a global puzzle challenge that launches every December 1st, like an advent calendar. We all get the gist, I hope and assume, where programmers around the world try and solve easier and more difficult puzzles and challenges as created by Eric Watzel. He's amazing, by the way. So you solve the puzzles and you get points. And the way Herb and me run it is we make a little separate secret leaderboard for only the mainframers to join, and you can kind of friendly compete with each other to solve those 25 but really 50 challenges during the course of December leading up to Christmas. It's all online. You can obviously solve the challenges in anything that you like, right? You can solve it in I don't know, in Basic, in C++, in Python, in R, in Java. And what me and Herb try to do is focus around all the languages that run on a mainframe, and try and see how and if we can join the global challenge in solving those challenges using mainframe programming languages.
Mhm.
I
so
hope
so
that's
you
clear.
see, yeah, yeah, no, I think that covers it quite well. And I think kind of you see the last bullet there. I mean, we kind of build a little mini impromptu community for the month of December, where people kind of talk about the challenges, they talk about what they're doing. We post on LinkedIn, we post on Twitter, stroke X. You'll see some of the stuff on Facebook too. So it's kind of like a mini feast of kind of mainframe languages. So this last year, and every year it's been getting slightly better and more fancy. One of the big features was, and I hope this isn't too traumatic for you, Henry, was we had Henry trying to live code solutions every day when they came out. So 25 days, and you could see from the YouTube channel these constant attempts to try and uh, meet those challenges. So how did that go, mate?
Well, as it goes with nearly everything, weirdly enough, I said, I think November 29, let's do live streams on YouTube. That sounds very cool when you plan it. When you actually need to do it, it's pretty scary, at least for me. Um, Previous years, I would record my screen while coding and then, spend sometimes half the day solving the puzzle, then spending nearly half the day editing that video to a viewable format, because there ain't no much fun watching me struggle for 4 hours long. Live streaming was definitely something different. Day one, I didn't do it all the days because it gets tedious and hard and stuff. But no, it was actually good fun. There was a bit of quirks on it. I don't know if Steve's in the call. That would be make it cooler. But when you're live solving the puzzle in a competitive sphere with other people who want to solve it before you, it is very nasty to see that when you finish your live stream and you know, uploaded your solution and got your points on Advent of Code, that just minutes before some of the viewers of your live stream already solved it because they were pair programming with you on their end. So that was funny. No, it was a different thing, like really different thing. I definitely want to try do it more next year, but I must also say that this year, well, last year's 2023 Advent of Code, it was quite harder on average than the previous years.
Yeah,
Not
especially the early days, because I remember, I think the first year I had a go, I went, oh, okay, day one, day two, oh, they're all like this. Hey, no trouble, no sitting around, catting on your fingers and toes. Ah, we could handle this, and then it kind of steadily ramped up. But with this one, I mean, day one, wow, that took some thinking.
Yeah, even day one was a hard startup in at
Yeah.
least for me. So yeah, no, it was good. It was loads of fun. We had I don't know if you got a slide on that, but we had a good, I would say, 20 to 30 people actively on a day by day basis, playing with the puzzles on our lovely IBM provided environment, which we'll probably get to.
Yeah,
So yeah, no,
that is part of the story. So well, yeah, it's one of those things. It's like when you tell all your friends you're going to run a marathon, and then you actually have to do it. So, so that was quite interesting. Those videos are still available, I believe, so people can watch them if they like.
oh yeah. They are. Maybe we should stick them in the slides for the proceedings so that they can
Yeah,
click. But if you
yeah,
Google
for the
me and
upload
find my
version.
YouTube channel, or just Google Advent of Code mainframe 2023, you'll probably get some hits.
Yeah, lovely. So, um, the game-changing thing this year, what was the big difference that we didn't have before, was we had our own mainframe, so to speak. Um, in this case, it was us having access to a WASI server, courtesy of IBM Toronto. So even if you didn't have your own mainframe to play with, you could join in the game. And I think this made a big difference in terms of um, kind of reaching out to people who maybe hadn't been able to kind of play before.
True, yeah, that was a big game changer, and I mean, I think that's a whole session by itself, in all honesty.
Mhm.
But you can imagine once again, thanks to the peeps at IBM, but the minute you get your WASI environment to run on, which is initially intended for a single to dual user, usage, um, and you get 70 to 90 people registering for your event, you need a bit of an operating system that's a bit more configured for those amounts of people. Also, once you got that done and we were live and running, and I was on the daily sending out user IDs and passwords for people to log on, the advent of code for me kind of changed from a solving puzzles made by Eric into a help desk function at the mainframe, because people forget their password or get revoked, and it was really, really funny.
Yeah, and we had like a whole thing about kind of like the sign up protocol and how we were gonna find out who'd submitted what and kind of where they were gonna store their stuff. So it kind of needed a bit more doing this year, which was interesting. I mean, it was a good thing, and I think in a way, for those of you who are kind of new to the platform, this might be a thing that we kind of reach out and try to get you involved with next time if we do it the same way. It could be a great way to learn your way around some of the tools and some of the interesting kind of features. Because as Henry said, it can become a little job in itself. You know, just kind of managing the mini platform. But yeah, all good. Um, but the upshot was we got a mainframe for Christmas. Now, who doesn't like that?
Yeah, Christmas came really early, right? Christmas came November 26, I think,
Yeah,
25, when we got the access to the system. So that was, and this is an actual, I think this is the picture you got right after logging onto the system. Not the
that's right.
log on screen, but like straight after.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. This was the thing that people saw when they signed up for the platform and they actually got their hands on it. So a little bit of epic art there. So this is a me thing. Um, and it's back to this notion of kind of hard skills and kind of why we do it. So we're really keen on finding ways to introduce new people to the platform. So Eric Wartzel's on record as, you know, Advent of Code is about encouraging people to code and encouraging people to get, you know, on board and thinking about problems and kind of coding solutions. And we are very keen to weaponize this to bring new people onto the platform, to give them opportunity to try mainframe where perhaps they haven't. We're also very keen to help people who are partway through their journey to improve their coding skills and just think about problems in a different way, or to think about problems on a level that they haven't before. We might come back to this later, but we did like a little workshop just beforehand with a group of COBOL programmers in Sweden, and kind of we had these interesting conversations about how you translate the type of things you have, the type of problems you have on Advent of Code into a COBOL way of thinking, and that was kind of, you know, it's an interesting kind of a challenge. We'd also like people, experienced people, to use this as an excuse to try a new language. Now, some of the things about the nature of the platform mean that people are incredibly good in particular silos, but often they don't get to think outside of their lane. And this has advantages and disadvantages, but in a way, it was kind of an invitation to try something that you'd always wanted to try, or you've heard, oh wow, we have Rust for the mainframe now. Okay, then let's give that a go. So kind of opportunities to try new things. Um, there are many languages that maybe don't get the exposure that they deserve. You've probably seen there were a few talks. There's a really good one about kind of COBOL the other day, and how, due to the lack of COBOL programmers, they may be resorting to the kind of large language models to kind of get stuff done. And, you know, can they really cut it? There's a conversation. And giving people a problem that they can use to investigate languages that have kind of been neglected, I think is another one of our goals. So kind of like trying to popularize things that, you know, haven't seen the light of day for a while. I'm not picking on PL1, but of all the languages, I think it's one of the ones that not many people outside the platform know. I mean, yeah, Rex is kind of very kind of mainframey, but I can remember Rex on the Amiga, and you know, it comes up other places. But there are some things that, you know, they're very kind of mainframe, and this is kind of an opportunity to kind of revisit um, some of those languages. Um, we also want to showcase the range of languages that we had. There are more mainframe languages than people think. We have Steve Perver, who participated this year, who's going to be talking about kind of Python on the platform and some of the things that that can do for you. There's a lot of things that kind of experienced dyed-in-the-wool mainframers maybe don't think of as kind of mainframe languages, which are now very much available. And so much of the interesting stuff that we're going to do in the future involves bringing some of those new kind of technologies to the platform. And finally, and this one, like I say, I'm not 100% sure. It's a hard skill as such. We really want people to enjoy their skills, to be a little bit proud, kind of show people how they do what they do. And this we call the Mind Candy mission. So having interesting things for people to do using the skills that they had. So this was kind of my hot take on our kind of hard skills kind of thing. Thoughts, Henry? Anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, well, one of it's maybe it's not a hard skill, but one of the things that every year surprises me and keeps me mentally like regurgitating the thoughts is the original discussions of, oh, you shouldn't do things in language X because it can't do
Why?
Y, right? Something.
Yeah.
When you, especially when we look at all the people playing Advent of Code for mainframers, when we look at their GitHub and their Bitbucket source code repositories, and you see people solving the same puzzle in like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different languages, it kind of
Ridiculous.
disproves the point. You go, right, well, this problem, it doesn't matter what language you throw at it, you can still solve the problem. Of course, every language has its own particular quirks and its own particular, impossibilities on approaches to solving a puzzle. But you can, I mean, I've seen, who was it? I don't know. I keep forgetting the names. We had one contestant, Mike, who
Yeah,
made a point out of doing a different language every day. I mean,
every day.
that's amazing by itself. And then you can see that Bash is actually a programming language,
Yeah,
and so it's. I think for me it helps with the conversations when people go, COBOL is old and busted, and we should get rid of it because it's old.
can't do this, it can't
It,
do that.
it's
Yeah,
it does everything Java and Python and all the modern stuff does. So
yeah.
yeah,
And some of it is just who's running it, whose hands it is it in? How creative are they being? So, in a way, it was kind of a lesson. It was a lesson on that.
we still have
Right.
people streaming in.
Okay. I have a question for you. This is you to me. What's the connection between these two pictures?
I wouldn't know.
Okay, it's maybe a sneaky one. It's a type of thing that kind of academics would go, well, yeah, obviously. So on the left we have the Chomsky hierarchy of grammars, and on the right we have Nim Chimpsky, who was a sign language speaking primate. So both of these were named after Noam Chomsky. Uh, now, uh, Noam Chomsky, if you don't know, is a professor emeritus of linguistics at MIT. And if you go far enough back, computer science, languages, coding, it was all kind of tied in with philosophy and mathematics, and in particular linguistics. In fact, some of the people that we brought from Wolverhampton to um, GSE one year, they were studying computational linguistics, and there's a lot of overlap between that and what's happening with the large language models now and all the rest of it. But basically, the hierarchy of grammars basically classifies different types of languages that you can use to communicate. Now, on the top level, at type 0 there, you have these unrestricted grammars, which is basically kind of everything that a Turing machine can do. Now, hopefully, all those languages that we were talking about, and we had a language cloud for kind of mainframes before, would come under that kind of that type 0 kind of Turing complete. And so it's basically, and this is what you were saying before, you should be able to do everything with every language. There should be things that there shouldn't be things that you aren't restricted for. Um, even kind of language features that you kind of recognize or don't recognize, because they're all in that type 0, it should be possible to to translate between the two or by some method. And in a way, this is kind of a practical way to do this. Among other ideas, Chomsky talked about this kind of universal grammar, which was potentially the way that we could describe all human languages, and there's about 6,000 that we kind of know of. And one of his ideas was that kind of language is kind of a feature of humanity, and the sign of being human was to have language of a certain quality. And there was a research team, and they taught a chimpanzee to use sign language, and when they were satisfied that it was actually using language, they actually named the chimpanzee after him. There's a really interesting film about that. I recommend you look into it if you get the chance. But yeah, that's the thing. Comparisons between kind of languages and thinking about how they work. Some of you may know these works. Some of them I've kind of used in classes and stuff. There's Bruce Tate's 7 Languages in 7 Weeks, and there's Paul Butcher's 7 Concurrency Models in 7 Weeks, which gives you the chance to kind of look in detail at programming languages and kind of how they work. But this is like in a very practical way, and that was what we're aiming to do with the leaderboard. So rather than look at kind of theoretically, how they relate to each other, which is very much the kind of the Chomsky hierarchy, practically how you can get them to do the same or similar things. Concurrency is an interesting one, because I think there were 1 or 2 kind of questions this year that it was like, if you did them, if there were ways of doing them which involved kind of setting more than one thread running, and that depending on how you did it, you might well have kind of issues around kind of time and complexity. So putting it out there are lots of things that we can learn by kind of comparing languages and messing around with them, particularly in a practical way. But you may recall, I was looking through your affiliations, Henry, and among those many ones, I didn't see the one that has that symbol here on the right hand side, the Z DevOps ID. And I remember when we first met up, that was kind of something that you were. It was a drum that you were banging before everybody else was. This idea that you can't just be one thing. You can't go, oh yeah, I'm a sysprog and not, so I don't think about applications. Right, I'm an applications developer, and so I don't think about kind of what goes on around it. And I think kind of this year, one of the things that stood out for me in terms of learning and hard skills was what you ended up having to do for the sake of setting up our WASI instance.
Yeah, that was. I'm curious what picture comes next, what slide. But yeah, well, just to answer your question, it's indeed Z DevOps or Z DevOps, right? Depending on which side of the puddle you're from. Indeed, I think I started that company in 2007 at the latest, I think.
Early adopter.
The mainframe community I was walking around in at that time, employers and GuideShare Europe and all that stuff, Um, DevOps wasn't really a thing that could be pronounced. It wasn't a thing on the mainframe back then. Luckily, it is now. And yeah, like you say, at least my view on it is I mean, if you want to be a very, very productive and effective sysprog, it it sort of requires you at least dipped your toes into the application landscape of the organization you're operating in, because um, there's so much overlap, and that's what I like where we're going now as as a community, as organizations are migrating. Um, Silos are good in a way, but you need to be keeping the conversation going. Need to, I mean, there's no use for application programmers to do a lot of difficult and hard to maintain stuff if the operating system can already solve it for you. And on the other hand, you don't need to do complex things in your infrastructure if, I mean, right, if your applications don't require it, or so there's always a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of effect.
Mm,
So yeah, there's a full document. I still think I want to make a full session out of that at some stage.
yeah,
Maybe.
no, no, no. I think we will. See, now the type of things that academics kind of know. I think the first DevOps day was in Belgium in 2007. So you were very early.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The first official conference, and then I think there was one in Japan, and just this thing of bringing together the teams that potentially could kind of be working against each other if you're not careful, but if they actually understand each other and what's going on, it makes a huge kind of difference. So it's quite strange that in our kind of advent of code, which is really kind of about the coding and development, curiously, there were some hard lessons vis-a-vis the ops. So let me bounce to another picture, and perhaps you can talk us through what was going on. These are from that document, another hard piece of paper that came out of this. So I believe this was to do with the group setup. Any comments on what's going on here?
Well, like any ZOS operating system in any shop, right? You need some setup for stuff to be able to run, for people to log on. The thing was, right, we had the good talks with our lovely friends at IBM. Shout out to you know who, you all know who you are, for helping us out with this. But I mean, you can't expect IBM to deliver you a pristine, ready to run mainframe with, users and groups and security setup and everything done and dusted. So this is where we start defining this is actual RACF commands running, right? For those of you interested, to create the placeholder big as, what's the word? Umbrella group where all the players would connect to, so that we could, do the authorization on, can they use the COBOL compiler? Can they use the PL1 compiler? Can they actually read and write from files and submit jobs, and to make life a bit easier? Yeah, so this is one bit of it. I like you copied my test user wizard. That's fun. So right after that, I remember this now. I was thinking, yeah, this is all fine and dandy, but we are going to have a lot of people sign up for this event, and a lot of already did. And I am not going to manually submit jobs to create 80, 90 users. So I had to, that's what it says there. First things first, create some template user creation, and then you get into this whole circus of, no, that doesn't work, because now I can, en masse create these user IDs, but I still need to set a random password for them, send those people an email to inform them where they can log on. And so this setup thing evolved into a Ruby Goldberg machine, is what I would like to call it, with some Python running on the mainframe that would generate JCL to create the users, and then from the Python end of things, send out those emails to all the people. It was a bit scary to set that up, that the WASI mainframe environment was sending out emails on behalf of my Z DevOps account. It was kind of
Mhm.
it was good fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, I guess it's just work that we don't necessarily know is there. We didn't appreciate until you get the challenge and you go, oh wow, okay, so we're going to have to think about something to do with that. Well, but you know, it's an interesting start. Let's bounce to the next one. So, this is part of a narrative from the document that you produced. Maybe you want to say a little bit about what's going on there.
What is going on here? Oh my goodness. Yes, I'm on track with you there. You know, once you have your users and your accounts and people ready to log on from a technical perspective, um, you still want to give them a place to stand, right? You need volumes, you need disks, you need the whole storage setup for such a ZOS system. Again, very DevOpsy to do that. Well, I'd rather not do it just by myself the coming year. So if there's people listening or watching the recording that think, hey, if and when IBM does provide a WASI instance for Advent of Code 2024, it would be amazing to have a larger group of people setting up the system, because it's a brilliant learning curve to do. With my playtime on ZPDTs for all these years, you get a bit of well, complacency in where I go, oh yeah, I need a storage group, and oh yeah, I need some volumes, and I need some ACS routines and all that stuff. But it's a very good starter for people who would like to know what goes on behind the scenes. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
only
yeah.
a
Put it
COBOL
this way:
programmer.
we are soft recruiting for interns potentially.
Yes, that's the right word. So if you want to, play with, learn with, or expand or revisit your maybe diminishing skill sets on anything that has to do with setting up a runtime ZOS environment for people to do Advent of Code on, yeah, keep watching our outings wherever, because we will
You are
definitely
here.
place that intern request thing sometime.
Yes, indeed. Okay, I'm going to skip to because I remember there was this issue with storage, wasn't there?
Yeah, there's always issue with storage, right? Because you again, it's once it's all set up and runs, and I think people who are day to day working at their shop, as they say, it just works, right? You create your data sets that are called my.awesome, and it just works. But there's actual stuff like infrastructural OPSI stuff that needs to be done. Again, this is the whole DevOps conversation, because from one from one angle, in the mainframe ecosystem, when you talk about DevOps, it's most of the time the divide between developers and operators, right? So you got people who write COBOL, and then you got people who monitor the batch and monitor the system, dev and ops. But when you look at this, setting up your storage infrastructure is actually dev, right? You're actually developing ACS routines and source codes, and you're developing your infrastructure and then making it operational. So yeah, it brings me more and more to the traditional divide of dev and ops. I think dev again divides in ops and dev within the dev sphere, and ops divides in dev and ops in the operational sphere. Um, it's real mind-boggling stuff the more you think about it and play with it. Of course, here I was the lucky one. I got full system access to that IBM machine, so I could set it up, run it. Maybe I wasn't all that lucky, and operate it. Restoring passwords, resetting user IDs, onboarding new users. Um, so yeah, I think it's a good curve for people to walk along next year to expand their skill set.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm almost reminded when we talk about DevOps of the legendary Netherlands football team who practiced total football. I guess you remember, what was that, kind of like late 80s.
Late 80s, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Where any player could play in any position. Sometimes you think, oh well, you have to be this height to be a goalie. You have to be, have to be like this to be a defender, or this to be a striker. And they had this famous team where they did total football, where basically any player could play any position. So having like a range of skills can make a lot of difference to you as a professional.
Yeah, and if not, right, what it also does, because I mean, we can't all know everything about everything, right? Because that would be a crazy world, I think. But if you just know a little bit about everything, or as I always say, if you just know what you don't know, that really helps you progress as well, because you can at least have some common ground with the guy or girl who does know everything there is to know about storage, and you can at least talk a bit on their level instead of going doesn't work. It helps, at least in
Yeah,
my opinion.
yeah. The word I was going to use was like, yeah, sympathy. At least you have like some, sorry, not sympathy, empathy. At least you have some empathy with what people are trying to fix and what they're going through, and how you might ask for this, but actually that's quite a big ask, and kind
Yeah.
of by embracing some of these other topics, there are some hard skills. It's that term again to be learned in kind of doing that.
Another hard skill is at the top picture for the routine for storage grouping, which is funny on line 1130. The keen eye had already spotted it, obviously, but this is the screenshot that in the document, when you read the whole thing, is not all that nice. Eventually I fixed it, but if you look at 1130 at the top line, and then somewhere at the bottom you don't see it, but there's a little typo there. It says EIXT instead of exit, and it took me
Ah,
way too long to figure out that typo. So yeah, learning the hard skill of reading and writing properly is a skill I still need to master at times.
Okay, but so that was a background thing. Let's get into some of the stuff that happened during the challenge, because I know you want to kind of talk about that. So I'll let you I'll
Oh
let
yeah,
you
that's
go ahead
cool.
with this one. Yeah.
Yeah, as stated, right, and you've addressed this in one of the starter slides as well. On a certain level, we can bring in all the. You're going to turn me into an academic one of these days, Herb. You can
Slowly,
bring
slowly.
all the Chomsky effect and all the other linguists and old school CS people, but on a certain level, all those, and I just took a couple, right? But Python is the same as Rex, which is the same as Java, which is the same as PL1 and COBOL, or even high-level assembly for that matter. And what I mean by that is that they can all move values to variables, and they can operate on those variables, and then they can print out some results from those operations on those variables, and they all solve the same issue, usually with the same approach. And what I see every year in Advent of Code, if you take a step back or maybe a step closer, they are so totally different. When I remember 2 years ago, Advent of Code, I was also trying to do same challenge for the same day in multiple languages to solve it. And I realized that when I started, let's solve this challenge, whatever challenge it is, doesn't really matter. But you start typing /star REXX, meaning I'm going to do this in Rex. And your brain starts picking concepts that you've used in Rex, and that kind of forces your thinking into how am I going to solve this problem. Whereas if you start with, oh, I'm just going to write Python, sometimes you get to a different approach, a different way of thinking for the problem and how to solve it based on what you've done and what's like the normal templating stuff you use for that certain programming language.
Feels like I should jump a slide now.
Yeah, maybe this is where we really need some audience participation. In loads of the challenges, as you can imagine, again, for those of you that didn't do Advent of Code, do join next year or the coming year, but you can still look at all the challenges from all the previous years on adventofcode.com. Most of the time, when you're trying to help out elves to power up Santa's, sleigh or feed the reindeer, you've got data and facts that are, in lists, and you need to sort them. So across the board, when you look at Python versus Rex, which are on some level really identical languages, you see some funny things. So if you would skip to the next slide, right? Of course, Rex doesn't have the concept of a list, right? We call it stems. But in Python, sorting a list is probably one of the easiest things to do. It's 2 lines and you're done. In Rex, it was a bit harder. This is one of the solutions spotted, actually one I whipped up, which is crazy in a way. I don't know if there's any Rex adepts here in the room with us today, but even if you don't understand Rex or Python, you can already see that it's a whole, from a visual perspective, a totally different solution, and also from the implementation, it's different. So that's what I meant. But it forces you in a, I imagine one of the easier challenges from a couple of years ago, you had to go on a large trip with the elves in the jungle or something. Maybe it was this year, and all those elves had little knapsacks with candy, and you had this data field of which elf had how many sweets with how many calories in their bag, and you needed to find the elf that had the most sweets, so you could walk with him, so you had enough food during your jungle walk. When you start doing that in Python, you already, you got so many data structures that you can readily use, and you go, oh yeah, done. And when you do it in Rex, it makes you think a bit different. I think from what I've seen, the heroes solving challenges in high-level assembly, you can see that at least that's my opinion, the more low-level your language is, meaning the less pre-made features and pre-made data structures that are there, the harder people think about the problem and the neater the solution is. I don't know how to word that. I'm curious.
Well, I kind of think about it as a difference between kind of buying a cake and baking a cake. So when you have to think about, the butter, flour, sugar, eggs yourself, it's quite a different experience. Your bought cake might be even nicer. It depends. But it's an interesting experience that makes you appreciate cake both ways around. So you can buy a cake and you go, oh wow, I never knew cake could taste like this. And you can make a cake and you go, bloody hell, I never knew it was quite so hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. I like that. So that's, and we can, I mean, again, we've tried to address more conceptual and real source codes and real solutions from real challenges, but in our trial runs, I think, Herb, we can share this. You need to spend about 15-20 minutes to to even explain the problem, and then it takes about it. So I think that's a whole workshop session by itself that we should organize sometime. Needless to say, my conclusion at the bottom line is every language has its own perks, its own cool things, its own way of sort of soft forcing you into a train of thought. And they all give you the opportunity to shoot yourself in the foot, right? And with some languages, you just hit your pinky toe. In others, you just lose the leg.
The thing I often say with Python is it's easy to do things quickly, but it's easy to do things wrong very quickly. So, for example, you can redefine functions and override them without even knowing what you're doing. You think, oh, I'm just using a variable name. That variable name happens to be a built-in function, and it won't stop you. And that could break, that could break code that you haven't even seen, but you've inadvertently kind of broken it because it's just so permissive. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of see the features that we've got here.
Ooh, I'm just checking our time here. We are at
Yes, I
10:50,
know, I
well,
know. Well,
9:56 for you.
yes, no, it's a lot likewise. And I was also looking, and it looks like I'm going to have to reload the version that's actually got our. So I wanted to say something about what came out the other end and our kind of leaderboard. Um, so we're going to have a special session. So one of the things that we're doing with GSE recently is trying to promote the things that you get um, as a member, and particularly how we kind of reach out to kind of beginners, trainees, university students. And so one of the things we're doing off the back of that is going to be a few more kind of workshops that aren't necessarily part of an event like this, but that are kind of places where we just talk about skills and learning. And it feels like this would be kind of an interesting kind of topic for a kind of a future kind of workshop. We're going to talk some more, hopefully, with the people who participated this year, and talk about some of the solutions that they did at a future workshop. But I would at this point, and looking at what we've got here, perhaps ask if we have any questions, because we've got a few minutes. Is there anything we can add?
I hope I'm looking at the right chat area, everybody.
Or-
No, I don't see questions. I don't see raised hands. If you want to, feel free.
Yeah.
Audience
Okay.
participation.
I would quickly ask: has anybody had a go at Advent of Code before in any language?
It's so annoying in a virtual conference, right, Herb, where you can't just go, you, dear sir, let us know.
Yeah. You there. I know you.
It's evil to put people on the spot virtual. No, I think then, I mean, either um, people are not watching, which I doubt, or we've been very ultimately clear, which I kind of doubt as well. So if there's anything, on the back burner of this session when you're in it now or watching the recording, feel free to reach out to me or Herb, especially Herb, because he doesn't get
Yeah.
enough emails yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and we will definitely address that. I think we do need to state that in that upcoming workshop, we shall finally, announce the winners of our Advent of Code
Yeah,
happened
so
last
so
year.
I think we'll be in touch with those guys directly. I don't believe any of the winners are in the chat here.
No,
I don't. No. Okay. But yeah, we'll be in touch with people directly because like I said, we would like to celebrate kind of what you did, because I think it was a really interesting kind of field this year. Um, but I think it's one that we could kind of make part of a workshop to kind of plan for the next session, because I think it's a really interesting way
yeah.
to go.
Maybe one final words. Maybe I think, even
Yeah,
though we're going to address that there, but we also always get some organizational support for our Advent of Code. It fluctuates year by year. I would say one of the constant factors is our lovely friends from Interskill, who always provide some swag for for the winners. So that watch this space for more information regarding that. I
Yeah,
see
I
some
think we
people
might have.
actually.
I think we might have some of them online. Yes, universal grammars and universal swag. So for people who were brave enough to kind of sign up, Interskill have been totally our friends and kind of in facilitating people to kind of learn new languages. They have a lot of online stuff, and I know my students have used it. So yeah, no, thanks very much to those guys. Um,
I got
we
one
do have
question
to.
here in the chat, Herb, which is sorry, Osato, probably hard to do in a couple of minutes. He said, I joined a bit late. Can you brief us on the whole idea? I think that's going to be a bit short, but we will add, we have to do that before we upload the PDF here, Herb. Just add
Yeah,
some links to our previous talks because most of them are online.
yeah.
Um, so, Osato, please have a look at that. In a nutshell, online puzzles, December fun mainframe languages. That's the condensed version.
Yes, indeed, and watch the recording. I think I had a final slide that works here. So we have the feedback form, and you can either go to that directly from the build your own agenda link, or if you put feedback 7M in there for this session, you could put something in. But we are now at town, and that is kind of us. So code mainframe, stay playful. Thanks very much.